and welcome to another episode, episode 67 of What Does This Button Do? It's an educational show about smartphones and tablets with Geeks on Tour.
That's us.
That is us.
Teaching old dogs new tricks.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Jim, and here with my wife, Chris, we're Geeks on Tour. Do you think your smartphone is smarter than you? Do you have questions about your Android phone or your iPad tablet? And how do you learn about these amazing devices?
Well, we are geeks who teach, and we think the best way to learn is in bite-sized pieces on a regular basis. So that's why we came up with this weekly show. Every Sunday we teach some topic of interest to smartphone users. Our website, geeksontour.com, collects all of our content, and that's where you can watch our prepared tutorial videos as well.
That's great. So where are we today, Chris?
We're at home, I guess. Our home that's not on wheels.
Home number 2.
Home number 2. The home on wheels is still number 1 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And
okay, on today's show, we're going to have a tip of the day, Stop the Ringing. Chris will do that real quick. We have a special guest. Mike Wendland was with us, and we'll get to him in just a couple of minutes. And the beginner's lesson will be managing passwords. A lot of discussion here. App of the week will be Ask Mike. He has a few lined up for us. And if you have questions, ask them there in the comments. I won't be able to put them on the screen, but I'll be able to read them here. And the show is recorded. It's recorded on YouTube at our Geeks on Tour channel. You can always find the links at geeksontour.com and weekly show. So do it.
And who are the Geeks on Tour? In case you've never tuned in before, please visit our website at geeksontour.com. Just scroll down a little bit. You'll see these little talking heads. Click there, and there's a video that gives it a little history of who we are and what we do. And I'm going to start with a very quick tip because we do have a special guest this week, and we want to have enough time to talk with him. So stop the ringing. What if you forgot to turn your phone off or to silent and you're in a meeting? The phone in your pocket starts to ring and everyone's giving you a dirty look.
That happens when we're doing a seminar a lot, and I think about this whenever that happens.
Whenever that happens.
All you need to do.
There is such a quick tip. Even if your phone is in your pocket, just squeeze it, because you're bound to hit some button. There's buttons on both sides, both on Android phones and on iPhones. There's button, and any press of any button will stop the ringing.
Yeah, it won't turn it off. It might turn it on, but
the call will still be coming in. I mean, so if you just want to stop the ringing and then get outside in the hall and take the call, you can do that, but it will stop the ringing.
That's a great tip. Thanks.
So that's our quick tip.
Okay, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And I do want to show this to introduce Mike. We have a little picture from his website and a little phrase. Before we let him say hello, we will tell you that he is a veteran journalist whose video, PC Mike Reports, have been distributed weekly to all 215 NBC stations since 1994, making him one of the most experienced tech reporters in the country. His tech stories and videos have appeared on MSNBC, CNBC, The Today Show, New York Times, USA Today, and Geeks on Tour. What does this button do? Back in May.
Okay, Mike, go ahead and unmute yourself. You have to do that at the top of the screen.
And
there I am, unmuted.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. It's so good to see you.
It is always great to be here.
This is great. Looks a lot more professional than ours.
Yep, I'm in the back of the RV.
What?
I said I'm in the back of the RV.
Yeah, right. How many computers you got there, Mike?
Oh, let's see. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, of course, always our iPhone, 5. Oh, and my tablet, so 6. That's in this room. This is our Sticks and Bricks house in Michigan. This is a studio where we do our podcast from every week when we're in
tell us a
Michigan.
little bit about the podcast. I see the microphone is right there in the background for road trekking.
Yeah, well, that started about a year ago last fall. We had no idea what we were getting into. We just thought podcasts were becoming really popular, and we thought, let's do one on just the travel lifestyle. And so we started it, and lo and behold, it just took off. We had over 1 million downloads in the first 10 months of the program. It's a weekly show, about an hour long. Most podcasts never get that many, and if they do, it takes some years to get there. So it just became really popular, and my wife Jennifer and I do it every week, either if we're here in Michigan in the studio here that we have, or we built a small little portable studio that we take in our RV. So we have not missed any, and been tough a couple of times. We got broken into the night before we were supposed to record it, and they stole all of our equipment, but we still managed to figure a way out using smartphones.
And that was right before we had you on the last time.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We want to hear even more about that, episode 40.
That was a traumatic wake-up call. That was, but so the podcast has been really fun. It's become really popular. I mean, we have about 100,000 people listen to it every month. They listen. It's great for RVers because they listen as they're traveling around the country, and then I have the roadtrekking.com travel blog, which we do with pretty much fresh content every day from myself, and I've got a team of reporters around the country that volunteer and give us reports as well. So, like you guys, this has become both a joy but also a job.
It is such a job. We listened to your last podcast. You had Chris and Cherie of RVMobileInternet.com. That was fabulous.
Yeah.
Aren't they awesome, those two?
Yeah.
Yeah, and boy, I thought I had a pretty good line on what mobile technology was like for RVing, but these guys, they really know their stuff.
They keep up with a fine-tooth comb.
They are our go-to people with this information. Years ago, we were the people that people asked, and we're so glad that Chris and Cherie have taken this up because it's gotten so complicated these days.
I think that there is nothing that is more of a necessity for an RVer today than having an internet connection. Right. Every now and then I get angry email from somebody who says, "Oh, I'm going out in the country to get away from it all in the woods. What are you bringing that technology for?" But from safety, for nothing but safety, but also it gives you the ability, in our case, to work from anywhere, to always be in touch with family and loved ones, and thus to do more RVing. And that's the beauty of having a good internet connection. But that, as you said, becomes so technical with all the different carriers, all of the different options, that it really is, you have to stay up on it. And that would be, I like these guys because that's what they specialize in. And they don't
it's a full-time job, and that is their full-time job.
And we were delighted.
The way I can get away from it all, the only way I know that I don't have to work, I don't have to have technology with me, is if I'm underwater. And I see that you are a scuba diver too. So
I am. Yes, I am.
Yes.
Love to scuba dive. Haven't done nearly as much as I'd like in the last couple of years. But I've done a lot of cold water scuba diving, but we like the Caribbean most. That's our favorite spot. The Caymans.
As you get older, it's much nicer to go in warm water and clear and easy.
Oh gosh, I did a lot of scuba diving in the Great Lakes with dry suits.
Oh,
no thanks.
And it was, and there's nothing to see down there, just sand. We did a lot of shipwreck dives, and that was fun. But you don't see anything like it is in the Caribbean. But we love it. I would like to combine it now with RVing and be able to do more RVing and scuba diving. But I'm in a Class B, so it's a little hard to carry all those tanks and all that gear.
Yeah, one of my early cross-country trips, I did take 2 sets of scuba gear from coast to coast, and I don't think I need to do that again.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
So your roadtrekking.com podcast is what's the cool, fun new thing about traveling now, but you still also keep up with the PC Mike and the Technology podcast?
Yeah, the PC Mike thing is something I started, the PCMike.com website started in 1994, so it's one of the earliest blogs anywhere, and that was when I first started it. I was working for a television station in Detroit. I was an investigative reporter, and I was doing a lot of computer-assisted reporting, and the internet was just becoming accessible. So to kind of keep my news director off my back, I said, well, let's do something about this thing called the internet. And that sort of started PC Mike. And lo and behold, I'm still doing it. And I do it every week. We do it from the RV, wherever we are, mostly looking now at apps and things like that. I still do that. But the road thing between the blog and the podcast, it's about a 10-hour-a-day job, I think. But it's
Right.
a job like you guys that I love doing. I mean, I would do this even if I didn't get paid a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are thrilled to have you here with us. You're one of the few people we know that have so much to do with both the travel side, like we do, and with the technology side. So we've asked you here to help us talk about passwords today. And I have, I think, 4 slides to introduce the topic, and then we'll just be chatting for most of the time, and we have some questions, and we'll take some more. So passwords. First, there are some generally accepted guidelines. Longer is better. At least 10 characters, and try not to have real words in there that people can guess. Include upper and lower case. Include numbers, include special characters, and do not use the same password for multiple websites. And this is not easy to do. And even if you do all that, it's still not going to be completely secure. The hackers keep up even more than we do, and the software can run through and guess these things. So we have a few more things to say. First, if you do insist on creating your own passwords, and there are password managers that will create them for you, we think that using a phrase is the best. So here's an example. Let's say you come up with a phrase, when I was 15, my dog was Spot and he was cool. That could become your password by just taking the first letter. So WIW 15, comma, MD, and I used equal for was or is, Spot, and that's a capital S, ampersand, HWC. I think that's a pretty secure password there, and yet it's one you could remember.
That is pretty secure, but you could also even just do the whole phrase.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay. But now, so that covers guidelines 1 through 4. What about making it unique for each website you go to? You don't want to have to come up with a new phrase for each website, so you can have a pattern, if you will, something about the website, say the first letter at the beginning and the second letter at the end. So that would make your password for Facebook be that WIW, etc., but with an F at the beginning and an A at the end. Google would put a G at the beginning and an O at the end. Bank America would put a B at the beginning and an A at the end. And then another example would be, I hate using passwords for my so-and-so Facebook account. IH8UP4 asterisk at FKA, and then add, or no, you don't even have to add anything because the Facebook is built into that one.
Yeah.
So you would say, I hate using passwords for my Google account, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one idea to throw out there. I mean, don't just be using your birth date or the word password. It's amazing how many people still do just use the word password.
That's not a good idea. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is not a good idea. I think everyone knows that already.
Now, I say the only way to really be secure is to use two-step verification, and most all websites now that hold personal data will give you this option. So what does it mean? Step 1 is your username and password, but after you enter that, you're not done. Step 2 is a code will be sent to your phone, and you have to enter in the code. So that's what two-step verification means. And I think that your email, if nothing else, you should put that on your email.
Email is important.
Because if you lose your password on your Facebook site, how do you get a new one?
You ask for a password reset, and they'll send that to your
email. So if somebody gets hold of your email authentication, then they can get everything else. And write it down. I mean, people think, oh, well, then somebody will see what I wrote down. Well, you know, we have to live with a certain amount of insecurity. And to me, the worst thing about passwords is if you don't know what it is, you can't get into your stuff.
Right. I use a shorthand. I use a mnemonic, if you will. And what I do is I know what my password generally is, and I'll know how I change it by what I write in the list. So I'll write my list, and I'll keep that on the computer, but it won't have a whole password in there. It'll just have something to remind me what the password is.
Like a hint or a shortcut.
And that's what I like to do.
So he'll say, my password for this site is J1. Well, nobody else knows what J1 is, but he does.
Right. I can add in the extra letters and numbers and any special characters. But it's still not as secure as two-step verification.
And personally, I think passwords are going away. You know, we can't. The internet was never intended to be a dangerous place and such a huge place, and passwords are never meant to be protective. We're going to have to go to the retina scan and the fingerprint and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But meanwhile, the best thing right now is a password manager like LastPass. So you use LastPass, right, Mike?
I do. I've been using that for a while.
Tell us about it.
Well, LastPass is one of a number of different password managers out there. It just happens to be the first one that I picked on, and I've stuck with it ever since. Now, I have to say, I've learned a lot over the last couple of years about passwords, and a lot of the stuff that we were told to do and a lot of things on that list, while generally good, hackers are way ahead of us. I interviewed a really top expert, a hacker tracker expert, who sells his services to a couple of agencies of the U.S. government who we would know by their initials. And he says that he has watched these hacker programs take away one of those random generated mixed characters and alphanumeric and different case. He's watched them take a 10-digit or 10-character password like that and find it in about 20 seconds, just running it through this massive hacker tracker device software that they have. So what I have been told now is the most secure password is a long phrase of words, of real words that you will remember, but that are necessarily are words that are not sequential. And I don't want to. I can't really think of a great example without giving the one that I use. But I have two that I use.
Go ahead, Mike. Tell us what
okay.
you're.
Well, I have two that I use, and I don't think anybody could hack those. I'm relatively as certain as you can be that they couldn't find them.
Well, let me take a little hit at it. So if you said something like window, table, tire, road, is that what you're talking about?
That's sort of it, but see, tire. See, you make that association. Window, table, those are things in a word. Those are things you just looked at. Tire, road, those all fit. So these would be words that have no connection to each other. But yet still would maybe perhaps mean something to you. So I have one that's made up of about 5 or 6 different words and a couple of numbers in there, and it means something to me. It's kind of like what Jim just said with him. Now I have that as my master password on LastPass. And what LastPass, where it comes in really handy, is when we're asked to use a number of different passwords for all these different websites we use. And so it will generate a pretty secure password for you that at least the hacker programs are going to have a rougher time finding it. And so I will let it generate that. I don't even know what it is, but LastPass has kept track of it. And so that when I go to that site, LastPass will say, first of all, I'll have to log in with my super duper password that I made up. And then LastPass will say, should I enter this for you? And it will do it. You can also call it up and you can actually look at it and write it down if you want. But let me give you an example of that. Someone near and dear to me who is not really technical, I had a list of all the passwords and dates of birth and carried that in her RV. And it was in a little notebook that had, birthdays and dates and the things that we all carry. And when that RV was broken into and it was stolen, that created a real hassle because it was written down. Mm-hmm. So my advice is, if you are going to write it down partially, just so you can know, well, I capitalized this and this, but don't put all of it down.
Right.
So be really careful of that. But I like this LastPass. I think it does a really good job. But how many passwords do we have? I probably have 50 of them.
Easy.
And a couple of them are really important. Many of them are not so important. And so I violate that law. I got to say, I have one password that I kind of use for the sites that I really don't care a whole lot about. And that's the one I first enter, and that's usually it.
Uh-huh.
And the ones
I'm cool with that. I mean, there really are a lot of sites that don't have, for example, geeksontour.com. People who are a member of geeksontour.com need a username and a password. But all that's for is to get you through our gateway. We don't help any of your information. It just gets you into our information.
Right. We don't have any financial information. No money is in that website at all.
And there's lots of websites like that. So yes, I have a simple, non-secure password that I use all over the place.
And that's what I do. And so when they say you got to have a separate password for everything, you don't. However, I do almost all my financial work online, and I am really careful about the password I use for that. And that's one of the few things I do change regularly. The big wake-up call for me was when we were broken into and everything was stolen. All my computers, my camera gear, my video gear, my podcast gear, everything. And I had the thieves had my stuff. They had my computer. I did not have my computer password protected to log in at that time. So if they got in, they could have gotten into pretty much everything. And instead, what I did is, so I had to rush the police office. They were taking the report, and I rushed to a Best Buy, bought a new computer, stayed up until 3:30 in the morning in the parking lot of that Best Buy, changing LastPass and a couple of the key passwords I had, because I didn't want the thieves to go and boot up my computers and find it. So to me, that was a real big wake-up call. One, always have a password. When you boot up your computer and you bring it back from sleep, make sure you have to enter a password, because I tend to put my computers to sleep and not boot them up every day, because you don't need to do that. I shut the lid, but when I reactivate it, I now have to enter a password. And that isn't a huge password, it's just one that I can quickly come up with. But it really, when I was stolen, it made me realize how vulnerable we are and how much stuff is out there, and why it's important to have some sort of password connection. You mentioned double verification, and I think that's really the best way to go for the secure ones, is have that two password system involved. One where you have to you text the code back and you have to enter it, like many of our banks now make us do.
Right. So was there any repercussions from your getting broken into regarding passwords and security and identity?
No, none. I did sign up for LifeLock immediately after that and started to make sure that somebody was watching our stuff. I alerted my bank and a couple of key officials that I had been broken into, and they put a watch on, and most of them will do that, put a watch on the account, and nothing was found. I think the key thing is on my computer, on the Macs that I use, when it's stolen or lost, I can send a signal that will then delete everything on the computer. And so that is the first thing I did with that new computer, is I activated the computer that was stolen. I activated it. I hit, there's a Find My Mac feature, and if your computer's turned on, it will show where it is. Well, it didn't show where it was. It hadn't been turned on. So that gave me some assurance, and then I immediately hit a delete, and the first time the Mac would open up and somebody would boot it on, it would erase. it had to have an internet connection, so that's the one thing you're worried about. But mine always has an internet connection.
Yeah, you can do that with your phone and your tablets too, your iPad,
Yep.
your iPhone, and
So
the Androids too.
Yeah, and Android has it. There's other services that you can get, and so that's another thing I would recommend is get that feature so that you can.
I don't think you can not have it.
Yeah.
Well, you can turn it on and off.
You can turn it on and off. Yeah, okay. But we also did cover that in case you want to know exactly where to turn that on and off. We covered it in one of our early episodes where we said, "What if you lose your, what if you lose your device?" So.
Yep, and that was really a big help for us, is to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But you realize how much you have on your computers, and it still amazes me how many people don't password protect their phones and their tablets. You know, I know it's just too much of a hassle. I just want to swipe and get into it. But
the bigger hassle would be when it gets stolen and it gets out of there, and now you're compromised and other problems happen. How about some of the other password managers out there? Dashlane was one that was mentioned.
Dashlane is a pretty good one. I've used a thing called Password Box, which is a pretty. It's really good if you have multiple accounts and you can log in with I think one click. I used another service called 1Password that does that complicated secure password for you.
We have been hearing a lot about LastPass, and for several years now. So at least right now, it seems to be pretty generally accepted.
And I think one of the things I like about it is they were hacked. I don't know if you knew that. This fall, they got hacked, but nobody got anything. And that was really assuring. You know, I signed up for, I think it's $12 a year or something like that. And it will then sync across all my devices, and it's really a pretty good program. I think that's all it was.
Well, and what I like, or at least in the latest release, then they just updated a week ago, I think. They have ways to give somebody access in an emergency, or after you die, you can designate somebody to get your main password, and then they can get into all your accounts. And ways to make folders. I got a different perspective talking to somebody the other day who not only needs to keep track of all her passwords for her own stuff, but she has clients, and she needs to get into their stuff, and she needs to have their passwords, and they need to be secure, and they need to be in folders, and LastPass allows you to do that.
Yeah.
Safari's built-in thing, the keychain. Do you know anything about that?
Well, the keychain that's built into Apple, if that's what you're talking about, which and almost all Apple devices will store your passwords, as will most of the web browsers.
Right, Chrome does.
Yes, and
Chrome does, and Firefox will do that.
Mm-hmm.
But why do that? Why have two different passwords to do it? So I think you pick the one shot you want to go with, and in my case, I use LastPass to manage all my stuff.
Right. So then, do you have the password manager for Safari, for example, turned off?
Yes, and I don't use Safari, but I have the one I use Chrome. That's I think the best.
And you have that turned off.
I have that turned off, and LastPass does it just about as fast. Chrome is a little faster because it's native, but I'm not going to have. I don't want to have everybody remembering it.
And Chrome just updated that too. So that I would like to show that. People wonder, it's when you're on a browser and you go to a website and you enter a username and password. It says, "Do you want me to remember this?" If you say yes, then you are using a password manager, a password manager that is built into the device, and you can see all your passwords. So I want to show that first on the iPhone and Safari, and then on the Android and Chrome, and it's the same on Chrome on the. So where's your Safari? It's way over here, right? All right. So this is an iPhone. And I can go into Safari, and you have it on airplane mode.
I did. Sorry.
Okay.
Take it off. Go ahead.
So let me just.
My fault.
Go back and take it out of airplane mode. And what we need is settings. Sorry, in the iPhone, you always start by going to settings, and then to Safari. and passwords. And notice it's not going to let me do anything with passwords until I prove that I have the rights to use this device. So that's where your device password comes in, or in our case, we've registered our thumbprints. And there are the passwords that he has already recorded using Safari. But what if you just want to ask Safari, no, don't do that. Don't ask me. That's the autofill. And you would turn that off. Okay. Now on Android and on Chrome on an iPhone, it would be the same thing. And I also, on the Samsung, I have my fingerprint registered. Nobody could get into this phone unless they have my finger or my backup password. So if I go into Chrome, no, let me get rid of my chat with Mike here.
Ah!
Anyway, I go into Chrome and settings. So that's the three-dot menu up at the top. And settings. And it is, and I have save passwords on. I kind of like this. And so instead of using LastPass, I am using Chrome. And so save passwords is on. If you are using LastPass, I agree with Mike there that you should turn that off so it doesn't ask you. And look at all these. So I use Chrome a lot, and I've been doing this for years. Look at all of these websites with a password. And just to let you know, you can actually see those passwords by tapping on there, passwords.google.com. But it's not going to show you those passwords unless you know your Google account password. So you have to type that in. And are you?
Oh, I thought we had it. Oh, God, I don't get you. That's another thing how hackers work, by the way. There's an interesting commercial I saw last night, and everybody's singing the old song, Getting to Know You, and it's showing how vulnerable we are for information. But they have a guy who's logging into his smartphone on a park bench, and over his head, somebody with a drone is taking a picture of him logging in. And most of our passwords are stolen through social engineering, through people tricking us into revealing them with those fake emails we get, or watching us as we log in on a public server someplace. So we have to be aware of who's around us when we enter them as well.
Very much so. Very much so. Okay, so here is what you see when you get to your saved passwords on your passwords.google.com and log in. Smart Lock, this is what's new, and it does cool things, like if you want it to, you can say, stay unlocked when I'm at home.
In a Wi-Fi hotspot that it recognizes.
Because it knows where home is with GPS. And here is a list of all my saved passwords, and I made sure to have one in here that isn't active anymore, so you can see that it really does show the password. You tap on that little eyeball, and you see the password for that account. So that's just built into Chrome, and if you have not turned that off, you're probably using it. And if you went to something like LastPass, you should go and clear that out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, let's see. So you said you don't use LastPass on your mobiles.
Not very much. No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't do a lot of web browsing on my mobile. Mostly I do email, and that's about it. Email and Facebook.
Wow, I use my phone for almost everything. Every once in a while I need a computer. So we had one question here that from a listener, viewer. If two people use the same tablet and both use it to access, for example, their Facebook account, how would password managers know which account to sign into?
Well, I don't know how it would. Well, I guess you would have to have two different password managers, or you'd have to have two different accounts on the password manager. So, for example,
Sounds like a mess.
It is, yeah. I'd say two people should not share the same laptop, at least for stuff like that. So you're going to have to, Jim is going to have to log in as Jim on Facebook, and you're going to have to log in as Chris on Facebook. LastPass will remember one of them, but it's the same URL. So remember, when you go into Facebook, it just says what's your username and your password. So it's going to enter 1. It's not going to enter 2. And you could have a separate LastPass for each of you, but then you've got to log into that first, and then you got to do it. So, I think you just have to suck it up and enter in your password twice if you're sharing a device.
One idea I have, I agree completely. I think one device, one person. These are meant to be very individual personal devices. But if you really wanted to do that, you could have the Facebook app that's logged in for one person, and the other person could use the browser and go to facebook.com.
You could do it that way, but then what's going to happen is you're going to hit the Facebook app, and it's going to be Jim's, or Jim's going to hit it, and it's going to be yours. But yeah, but if that's it, if a lot of people do share it, you don't need to have 2 different tablets for a lot of people, and that's one of the inconveniences of going to a site where you have 2 different accounts and 2 different passwords. You're going to have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. So we had, let's see, a couple of comments anyway. Jolyn says that LastPass has been her password savior. Pays $12 the annual fee for the premium member, and oh so worth it. That's great.
Yeah.
And it works across all of her devices, accessible from anywhere and any device as long as she has a browser and an internet connection. Well, you need an internet connection. So all she has to remember is that one main password. So.
And then again, if it's stolen, you just have to get a computer, log in, and change your access, and you're home free.
Yeah, that Dashlane, it looks like it is like $40 for a year for premium.
Yeah, I think that LastPass had the most bangs for $12 a year. It's a lot of security, and that new feature that you just mentioned, Chris, about, and we have to think about that, particularly as RVers, as you're driving around. Somebody gets sick, somebody dies. All that information is out there. What do you do, and how does your family recreate all that stuff? Particularly if you have bank accounts and online financial accounts, you need to have somebody have a way to get into it. And that's why I like LastPass. They have to have a LastPass account on their own, but you can then designate them, and it will work out pretty good.
I think that's really important.
Okay,
I like that.
Another question: what is airplane mode?
Airplane mode.
Flip it and you fly. It's something we've been trying to.
Airplane mode turns off all the radios on your mobile device. So if you have a smartphone, turning on airplane mode will turn off your cellular radio, so you won't get any calls. It's a great do not disturb. You won't be getting any internet, so you can't do any browsing or email or any of that stuff.
You can't get a call.
It just makes the phone go quiet.
But the phone does work, and you could use it, for example, to read a Kindle book.
Oh, right.
I'll do. Yeah.
Or as a camera.
Take pictures.
And I learned another really good trick with airplane mode just this week. I had tried to send I use my iPhone. Sometimes I'll do a quick interview for the podcast, and that takes up a lot of space. And I had done one last week, and I said, well, I'm going to email it to myself, and it was too big to send. So it got stuck. And I don't know if you've ever had where you've tried to send too big of a file, and it's just your smartphone keeps trying to send it, and it locks in there under drafts. And the way to stop that is to turn on airplane mode, turn off all your data, and then you can delete it. But you have to learn that. So it's another. That's what I just learned this week, and how to be able to rescue yourself when you get stuck in trying to send a large file that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah.
Well, there's more to be said about passwords, but that's all we're going to say, because I want to hear of an app of the week you want to. We talked about several before the show.
Yeah, people should actually listen to us. Every time we see each other, we do that. If we talk, well, what are you guys using? Well, I'm using this. I started using this. And, wow. I think maybe that's because I did my NBC piece on it this week. The thing I did this week was on to-do lists, because it's the start of a year, and we all want to be organized. And I have come up with, I found 3 of them that I'm testing out right now, and the one I kind of like the most, and it really is a nice list for RVers, because, we need a list for packing, right? We need a to-do list for kind of like a checklist for what you want to do when you pull into a campsite.
Yep, set up, tear
And
down.
I use a checklist of stuff I want to make sure I've taken care of before I take off from a campsite. You know, like unplug the water line or whatever. So I found a couple, three of them, but the one I like the most is called AnyDo, and it's ANY.do. And it's pretty free. It's free. It works iOS and Android. I think we have both of them. I like it because it will sync to the cloud on any iOS or Android device as well. You can add tasks to it if you're at a computer and something comes up, you want to send it, you can send it right to your account there. So I like that. It's called any.do. And
yeah, we're showing the website.
oh, is it? Okay. It's a pretty cool little app. That's my app of the week, although I think it's more like app of the hour. I find some I don't do any of them like you.
Okay, another question here from Bob. Can you set rules on LastPass to match a company requirement? Oh, so I guess it has to have upper, lowercase, and special characters and numerals or something like that.
Sure, you can enter. Maybe Bob was mistaken because it will enter a password for you. But if that password doesn't comply with the rules that your company or the website has, that's all right. You can enter your own. You can make your own password for it, and it will remember that, and then you're all set that way.
And Marie says she manages several Facebook accounts, and Dashlane will save different logins for Facebook and ask you which one you want to log in with when you go there.
Well, there's another one. Try that. That's a good reason if you're a heavy-duty Facebook person. Yeah, Dashlane. I like that.
Well, check it out.
Yeah. Okay. So we always end, Mike, with the review questions. So let's see how you do.
If you insist on coming up with your own passwords, use the blank method.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah. Sure.
I thought you were ready.
You're with us.
Use the double verification method.
Well, what I was getting at here is what you talked about, the phrase to make your own passwords.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't call that so much as a method as...
you were supposed to send him the answers to you.
Oh, yeah. No, that's good. But double verification is the safest thing you can do. That's the most important. Setting your own passwords, use a very unique phrase that only you are going to get that you will remember, but that doesn't sequentially link the words and the numbers. So it isn't like the red fox, something like that, because they'll look and say, well, red, what's the next word that most people use? Dog. Well, fox. Red fox comedian, you got it. So don't use that. Make a really unique phrase on your own.
Okay, with two-step verification, the second step is entering a number that you will get how?
By your smartphone. It will send you a reminder. It'll say, enter that code. Enter this code, and then you'll enter it there.
And that's a different code every single time.
Every time. And it only works for about 5 minutes typically.
right.
Yeah, so I'll do that later on. You'll come back and you can't. Many banks do that now. If you ever, my wife's bank account, she does all of one of our accounts is on a bank that every time you log in from a different computer or a different IP address, it makes you do this two-step verification. And then she sent the verification to my phone instead of hers. So if I'm not here, she goes, what's my verification? Then it's too late. But it's happening in many places, and it is a very secure way to do it.
It is a bit of a pain, but it makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
All right. The password that needs to be the most secure is that for your what account?
Password manager account.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
If you're using a password manager, that is the most important password. I think what Chris was going for here is your email account. That's real important. But
because that's where your password resets will come to. So
if anybody gets that, then you can be in trouble with all of your others.
And for me, that answer is my Google account, because it is my Google account that is my password manager. So, agreed.
True or false? The LastPass password manager will generate passwords for you.
True.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And which is something that the Chrome password manager will not do.
Right.
It just remembers what
Whatever
you type
you've
in.
written.
It doesn't generate anything for you.
Okay. True or false? Use fingerprint scanners where possible.
We didn't really talk about whether those things are really secure, but I would say yes, that it's true. It's just another way. Nobody else has my fingerprint, and they could cut my thumb off, I suppose, or force me.
Oh yeah, we see movies.
But here's something that we didn't talk about. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that. That is a credit card. And that's the other thing that we're talking about, why these phones and passwords are so important. Because I have mine set to work with that, or on my Apple Watch as well. And, you can buy stuff from it. So you really do need these passwords. This is the best way to buy. It is so secure.
Right.
As long as you have the phone and nobody else can get to it. That's the weakness of it.
Do you use the thumbprint to unlock your iPhone?
I do.
Yes.
And like you, I noticed you set your index finger and you set your thumb. I have it on the same way, both two fingers, and I set it on both hands. So.
Oh, and that's one thing, at least I haven't figured out how to register more than one fingerprint on the Android.
Yeah, Android may be different, but the iPhone will let you can do all of your fingers, but I do my thumb and my index finger, and I do it on both hands, so I can find it.
We do it so Chris can open my iPhone.
Yeah, I've registered my thumbprint on his iPhone.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, a very important question. You can listen to Mike Wendland's podcast at
roadtrekking.com. ROADTREKING.
Very cool.
I hope.
All right, Chris, what's the web page that lists all of our weekly shows?
GeeksOnTour.com, and you just click on the menu item for weekly show.
Okay. And how about the web page that lists all of our recent newsletters?
GeeksOnTour.com, the menu item is blogs and articles. Newsletters is under there.
And the benefits you get by joining Geeks on Tour.
Access to all our tutorial videos, over 400 of them, asking questions in our members Q&A forum, and the show notes for all of these shows.
And we promise to respond to those questions on the Q&A forum. We don't promise to answer the questions, but we promise to respond. We do invite you to become a member, geeksontour.com. Click on the Become a Member. Next time.
I'm going to talk about Facebook on mobile devices next week.
Okay, that'll be episode 68. We'll take your questions. Watch for the notification for next week's show and click that you're coming. And leave any questions there in the comments. And maybe next week the comment tractor will be working. No promises.
And thanks so much, Mike, for joining us.
Hey, pleasure, you guys. We'll see you in person, and we'll both be in Perry, Georgia, in just a couple of months. So.
And we're looking forward to that.
Yes.
That'll be fun.
Again, and we'll see you next time on What Does This Button Do?
What does this button do?
Don't touch that button.
I need to know. I just want to.